one we call the tinsel ball on a string, or some kind of static charge demonstration. You're probably familiar with charge because when you rub a balloon on your head, it'll stick to the wall. And how does that work? It has to do with electrical polarization. So the first thing that we can do is we can show electrical polarization with this demonstration. So what we have here, Rob has a chunk of plastic, and he's going to rub some fur on it. We found either PVC or this black stuff. I think that's ABS. When you rub it with plastic, when you rub it with the fur, it will take on a very good charge. So Rob's going to try and bring this close without it touching, and watch. It's being attracted slightly. Bring it a little bit closer, and there you can really see it. See how far you can get it to go upwards without touching it. That's about as close as you can get. Whoa, right there. And so you can see that this thing is attracted even though nothing has touched this yet. Right now, this piece of metal is electrically neutral. Right? It has the same amount of positive and negative charges on it, but this piece of plastic, I forget if it's positively charged or negatively charged. Let's assume for right now that it's negatively charged, and we can curse Ben Franklin in our sleep if we're wrong. Okay? So let's assume that this rod is negatively charged. What happens here is in this piece of tinsel, the electrons are free to move. They're more mobile than, say, they are in glass, and as a result, we really see this polarization effect. And the electrons in the rod are causing the electrons that are free to move in the piece of metal, they're causing them to move to the other side of the tinsel ball. As a result, this side of the tinsel ball is slightly more positive, and then it's attracted. So because the negative charges are a little bit further away, they repel. So that's electrical polarization. But let's go a little bit further. Rob, why don't you let the tinsel ball actually touch the rod? Okay? And touch it a couple of times there. Okay? Rub it around a little bit. And now, hopefully, now some of the charge has been transferred over to the tinsel ball. When he brings it close now, watch what happens. Bring it close. Oh, it might have been charged up. Let's go ahead and charge it up again. Charge the rod one more time. Rub it with fur here. Let's get this thing cooking. I can hear it crackling. You'll know that the black rod is getting very charged when you can hear it crackling. I can hear the static electricity. You probably can't hear that, but I can. Go ahead and bring it close. Ooh, yeah, you can see there's enough charge on the ball. Go ahead and force it to touch. And now you can see you can actually cause this thing to levitate. See how far up in the air you can get it to go. Sometimes it helps if you have a little teamwork. There we go. So if I try and help him out here, we can work together, and kids love to do this. You can work together to see how high you can levitate the sphere and see if you can get it up to the top, whoa, without touching it. And that's just, this is again, I like to call this Paula Abdul's theorem. Opposites attract, or like charges repel. So Paula Abdul, if you're upset about this, just remember Ben Franklin is too, so you can just relax a little bit. And this is a fun demonstration. All right, one thing I'd like to add at the end, if it's a humid day, this doesn't work very well. So we bring out our trusty hair dryer, and let's show you how we use that. You just run the hair dryer up and down the length of this to dry things out. That gets rid of some of the humidity, right? So by using a hair dryer for a few minutes, or a few seconds rather, you can cause everything to dry out a little bit, and you're more likely to get static. Okay, you reduce the humidity in the air, just like on a cold, crisp winter day in Southern California when there's low humidity. Oh wait, that's not Southern California. Whatever, you get the idea. Charge the ball up. You touch it, the like charges repel. Oh my gosh, we exploded the experiment. That's tinsel ball on a string. Since we're here, I might as well tell you about some of the things that we've experienced that can go wrong, or just some interesting behaviors that you can observe. One of the things that you want to watch out for, if you have very oily hands and you mess around with this a lot, you can get some oil on the string and you can lose some charge. On a humid day, this can be enough to kill the experiment. So you want to be a little bit careful when you're first putting these together. You don't want to rub oil all over everything. Or if you do, you could always get out your hair dryer and try and dry things off. So if you're having trouble with this, dry off all the surfaces. That's one thing. So you can dry off the tinsel ball, you can dry off the fur, and you can dry off the PVC. If it's a humid day, you're probably going to have to do that a lot. That's one thing. Another interesting thing that can happen is what happens if you get this too close to the metal pole. So if you hang this in a different spot, say close to here, let's see what happens when Rob tries this out. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Meyer. As he brings this close, go ahead and touch it, Rob. And you can see that it'll start carrying charge back and forth here. and it's not going to be as good of a performer. So in this case, it'll do some weird things, and that's because here's another large piece of metal that can polarize. So if we bring this out, you could sometimes use this to your advantage, but again, you want to have this pretty far from anything else, okay? Obviously, a wind force is significant. This is a very low mass. This is only going to work with a very small mass, and this is a very small amount of force. So if Rob, go ahead, Rob, go ahead and charge up the tinsel ball, and I bring this piece of metal close, you can see it'll carry charge back and forth, if we get a little bit closer there. So it'll charge up on the PVC, or the ABS, and then it'll come back over here to the metal rod. Oh, we're having a little bit of trouble with this. Go ahead and charge the black rod a little bit more. But this is an interesting thing you can do, and you could discuss how essentially I'm a grounding wire. And so as the tinsel ball carries charge, it goes to the plastic, and it accrues some charge, then it comes over to this piece of metal, and then I deposit that ultimately to the earth. And that's why this thing starts bouncing back and forth, which is very cool. And then another thing that I might mention here, if you tried to do this with a balloon, say, all right, let's just blow this up. You might think that you're going to get just as much force. The balloon has a very large mass, or a very light mass here, but if you were hanging this balloon here instead, you're not going to get the same effect, all right? Now you can charge up the balloon, and that's a totally different problem because you're charging the balloon directly. But if you try and get the balloon to polarize, it's not going to work as well. Why? Because in the metal, the electrons are free to move. So this piece of metal will strongly polarize. So if you try to, you could charge up balloons and hang them from strings, and if you charge them up, they'll all push away from each other very slightly, but you're not going to get this dramatic effect. And that's why we're using the tinsel, because the metal conducts more freely. The electrons are more free to move. You see stronger polarization. Now you know that you can do this with a balloon, right? You could charge up a balloon, and you could use the balloon instead of the PVC pipe, right? So this would work a little bit, but we'd notice that it's just not as dramatic, but you could try and get this balloon to stick on the wall, and I'm having a little bit of trouble here today. So again, you want to have a light mass, you want to have a piece of metal, you want to have it far from any other pieces of metal if you want to try and levitate it. And then you want to charge the black rod very well, so if it's having trouble, you want to use the hair dryer and dry that out a little bit. That's the tinsel ball on a string. Hopefully I got everything that can go wrong.